Rabbi said, welcome back to Yerushalmi Eruvin. We are holding at Perek Shmini, so we're Nun Daled Amud Aleph. Now, we're talking about leaving a tchum, Eruvei Tchumin. One person doing it for others. Keitzad Mishtatfin B'Tchumin. How is it that when one person wants to join other people with him with setting a tchum, an Eruv Tchumin, you're putting it down? How do you do it on behalf of others? Meniach, you leave in the place, the food of the Eruv, and he said, this is for all people in my town. Anyone who's going to the house of mourning on a base Mishnah or to the wedding, which is in the neighboring town. And anyone who took on, before Shabbos came in, that his Shvisa should be where the Eruv was put, Mutter, he's allowed to go, relying on that Eruv, 2,000 Amos from where the Eruv was put down. But someone who took on the Eruv early Mishachasheicha, after Shabbos come in, also you cannot go 2,000 Amos from there, relying on the Eruv. She'emavin Mishateshach, you cannot make an Eruv after it's already got dark. So how do you join others in Eruv Tchumin? And we said what you do. Now, did we not learn that one who leaves the Eruv, you're mezakeh for the people on your Eruv, that they will have a share in it? We learned like Eruvin Daf, if it belongs, the one who puts it there, you have to be mezakeh, you have to acquire it for everyone. So why did we not learn mezakeh lahem? Mezakeh, acquire for them. Why did we not say this? In Eruvin Daf we say that because yes, you have to acquire the Eruv for all the people over there. But here it's Tchumin, we didn't learn the Lashon mezakeh. You don't have to sort of acquire it for them. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Kol Haloshon b'davar." He says, "Kavach Chaim mine on Talmud if already there should be Chaser Zela Midivrein. It's only rabbinical. Atam Mazakin, you have to acquire it for them. Eruvei Tchumin with Vatayr like Kol Shgein. How much more does he have to acquire it from them? And if it's allowed Kavach Chaim Eruvei Chaseros, then the Mishnah didn't need to say it. We realize learned from a Kavach Chaim. Asya the Rav, Rabbi Yochanan. And Rav holds that Rabbi Yochanan, that what? The Eruv Tchumin, you need to be mezakeh. And we explained what's the reason of Shmuel now. Why Eruv Chaseros you need to be mezakeh, but Tchumin you don't have to. That's according to Shmuel. By the food, you're putting them all together, making it all into one. The food puts everyone's domain together, yeah? All the people in the courtyard, as if they're all living in this house. So they all need to be shutfin in the food which is left there. Eruvin Tchumin, that reason doesn't stand. We're not making this place everyone's house. They're just putting some food down so they can go 2,000 numbers. How much is the share of Tchumin? Right, so now it's 2 meals for each person who's relying on it. That's 2 meals on a weekday, Shabbos, but not Shabbos. Different men. Rabbi Yehuda, he says Shabbos, no. 2 Shabbos meals, not weekday. Now, really, they both want to be lenient. The food that they're choosing is based on the smaller meal. But which meal is smaller? A weekday meal or a Shabbos meal? According to Meir, a weekday meal is less. According to Yehuda, a Shabbos meal is less. You'll ask me, we'll see. Why is a Shabbos meal less? No, it means the bread that you have as part of it might be less because you have all other foods. Whereas in the weekday, you might only have the bread, whatever. So that's what it depends on. Rabbi Yehuda, the other opinion, said, look, a weekday, your general meal is smaller. But the other one says, no, on Shabbos, your meal might be bigger, but the bread element might be less. So we'll see. Rabbi Yochanan, he said, the shir of Eruv is mekikah b'punyan, a kikah of bread acquired with a punyan, where the price of grain is 4 sar, which is a volume measure, besela. For a seller. A seller is actually 48 punyans. So it's a kikah which is bought for a punyan, that loaf, where the price of grain is 4 sar to 48 punyans. Right? Remember, 4 sar, 1 sar is 6 kav. So 4 sar is 24 kav. So it's half a kav. Rav Shimon said the shir of the Eruv is shtei yodos lekikah. No, it's 2/3 of a kikah. Mishalosh lekav. So it's not half a kav, but it's 1/3 of a kav. 3 make up 1 kav. So each, so the whole kikar. What? No, shtei yodos lekikah is 2/3 of a kikar, which is in this kikar where 3 of it make up 1 kav. Okay, 3 of the bread makes up 1 kav. So every kikar is 1/3 of a kav. And 2/3 of a kikar, that is the volume of 2/9 of a kav. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now the Mishnah brings 2 halachas in other matters where the share depends on the share of the kikar of bread and the share of Rabbi Yechim and Shimon with the Eruv. Chetzia, so half a kikar is the share of Bais HaMenuga. For a house with tzaras, one who goes in is tamei. And if he stayed there a period of time where you can eat half a kikar, which is achilas pras, then your tamei, your clothes that are on you are also tamei, by the time you've stayed in a few seconds. But chetzia, and a quarter of a kikar, that is the sheikh that lifts out his agviyah to tamei a person, a kohen who ate that share of tamei food becomes tamei his body from eating truma until he becomes tahor. Okay, so there we are. So the 2 opinions we had in the middle there, either it is a kikar, Rav Shimon said it's 1/3 of a kav, a kikar which is 1/3 of a kav, and the other opinion said it was worked out at half a kav. 1 kikar is half a kav, Rav Shimon said 1/3 of a kav. Okay. Now we had a machlokes from Meir Rav Yehuda. Which meal are we talking of? Which meal is smaller? Rav Meir Bechula, the weekday meal is smaller. The less lemalach, you got nothing to eat. Who eichel pita tzivchat. So you eat a bit of bread. But b'Shabbat on Shabbos disla malach, you have what to eat. You got other foods. Eichel pita sagin. You eat a lot of food, a lot of bread. So he's saying, because you have a lot of food, you will eat a lot of bread, and with every food you'll eat bread. That's one version. Rabbi Yehuda said, "B'chayla on the weekday the less the malach, you got nothing else to eat. Eichel pita sagin. Therefore you eat a lot of bread. But Shuvza on Shabbos the Isle malach, you have all these other foods to eat. Therefore you will not have much bread. Eichel pita zivchad. You'll not have much bread." But Tanike, we've learned quite a different Shabbat. Actually, these shurim are not very far apart. Isacham, he says, come and see. Now, Rabbi Yechim Breika, he looks at a kikar, the gula is another reference to a kikar, at a volume of 12 eggs. Because 4 star is 576 eggs. Okay? And a kikar, which is bought with a pundian, when 4 star is a seller, is 1/48th of 576 eggs, which is the value of a seller is 48 pundians. So the share of a kikar is actually 12 eggs. Okay, the share of a kikar is 12 eggs, which is 1/48th of 576 eggs. So it's 12 eggs. Now, the Ahen Abad Igula Tamne, Rav Shimon looks at a kikar with a volume of 8 eggs, because he said kikar is 1/3 of a kav. A kav is 24 eggs volume, so 1/3 of that is 8 eggs. So one is 12 eggs and one is 8 eggs, and you're saying they're both the same? They're very similar? You're telling me they're very similar? They're not similar at all. Rav Huna makes the same one here. He says, no, the reckoning of the price, according to Yechim Breika, the punyan, is based on 4 star for a seller, but that's not only the price of the grain, but also the cost in the grinding and the baking. Now they are 1/3 of the normal price of the grain. So you can't buy it for a punyan the share with 12 eggs, but maybe you can buy a volume of 8 eggs, which is 2/3 of 12. Because once you take the baking and the grinding expenses, you got to add another 1/3 to the price. So the share of the kikar of Yechim Breika is close to the share of Rav Shimon. Right? Now the truth is, you say they're close, they're exactly the same. Yeah, they're both 8 eggs now. 12 minus 1/3 is 8, and the other one also had 8. So that's the question. What do you mean they're similar? They're exactly the same. So they're not close, they're exactly the same. So some say the 1/3 to take off expenses is not exact. It's close to 1/3. And therefore it's not exactly 8 eggs, it's close to it. Alright. He reckoned to those bakers the share of the expenses that they were spending. He said, yes, you're allowed to increase on the price 1/3 from the price of the grain, like that which Rav said said here, a shlish of 1/3. Ulachain kahan shiura, providing you're careful to take that share and don't gain more than that. Halacha Gimel. Back to Eruvei Chatzeros. Now, we're talking about a building of 2 floors. Each floor has a few houses. And the entrance of the houses upstairs are opening to a sort of balcony. They have sort of balcony. And from that, there are steps going down into the courtyard. and through that you'll go and walk into the street. Right? You hear that? So upstairs there's a balcony, and then from balcony steps going into the downstairs courtyard. The doors of the houses downstairs are open to the courtyard. The courtyard and the balcony are two separate courtyards with a door in between. They could join up separately, or they could join up together. Now, what's the din if they didn't join up together, but each one was separate? The people downstairs in the courtyard, the people upstairs in the balcony, and they forgot. They didn't join up together, but the people in the courtyard did themselves, the people upstairs did themselves. Then, if you can carry in the courtyard, or upstairs in the balcony, but you can't carry from one to the other, and if there are places in the courtyard where maybe you can use it from the courtyard and from the balcony, you might have a little pillar or something where each one could use it. So the din is, let's say you have a post box or something like that, a sort of pillar downstairs. So if they can both, if it's 10 tefachim high from the ground, then it belongs to the balcony, the mirpeses. However, pachas mekan, if it's less than that, lachatze goes to the courtyard. Chulia sabar, which is ground, earth, you've taken out of a pit in a courtyard and you dug a pit, and you surrounded it with a sort of wall and edging around it. The hasela, or a rock in a courtyard, gavaya masor tefachim, the 10 tefachim tall, the mirpeses belong to the balcony. Pachas mekan, less than that, lachatze goes to the courtyard. That's all very well. It belongs to a balcony if it's near to it. It's easy for them to use it. If it's far away, even if it's 10 tefachim high, if it's nowhere near the balcony, then it goes lachatze to the courtyard. How near does it have to be? It must be within 4 tefachim of the balcony to say that they're able to use it. Now, we said if it's 10 tefachim high, it goes to the balcony. Now a pit or rock, it belongs to the courtyard. But what do you mean it's 10 tefachim, then it belongs to the balcony? Why? It should belong to the courtyard. It's in the courtyard. I'll review. The Semiramis tells me, Reuven. You have a ruin where no one lives. It belongs to Reuven. But it's found within Shimon's courtyard. The Shimon used it, Reuven doesn't use it. Then it's treated like Shimon's as far as carrying. Shimon can carry from his courtyard. Reuven's ownership does not forbid on Shimon the ruin. But as far as carrying, we don't look at the monetary owner. We look at the use. So here as well, a pit and the rock, which are 10 tefachim, it's more easier for the balcony, even though it belongs to the courtyard, it belongs, as far as usage is concerned, it goes to the balcony. Now, Pshita Hadabilsa, one thing is clear, that you've got two courtyards that don't make an Eruv. Let's say there's one area which is closer to both of them. If each of them has a doorway to get to that access, and each of them can use it easily, they've got equal usage, easy usage, each one has got a door into that area, then they both are forbidden to use that reshus. It's a shutlas of both, they didn't join up, they should have made an Eruv. And the proof of this is from a house between two courtyards, where he said, look, the middle between two courtyards, they don't make an Eruv, it's open to both of them, they can't carry in there, both of them. So if they both got the same equal access, and they didn't make an Eruv, they're both forbidden. But if, however, this one has a use like through throwing things, and this one has a use, let's say, through lowering his hands. So, if it's not equal, so let's say the courtyard can use a middle reshus by throwing. In other words, the middle reshus is higher than the courtyard 10 tefachim. The people can't use it unless they throw things from below upwards. And let's say another courtyard can use it by shilshul. Shilshul means it's lower than them 10 tefachim. Yeah, so in other words, one courtyard is down, one courtyard is right at the top, and this middle area is in the middle, you see? So downstairs they have to throw things up, upstairs can throw things down. So therefore, lowering things is easier, that's permitted, as Rika Asura, and throwing is forbidden. Because it's not the usual thing for throwing upwards. Rav said, La Klum. He says, no. He says, between the two courtyards, they're both asur. He says, two types of usage, throwing and shilshul, and both not good. So it remains meshutaf to both, and they didn't make an Eruv, and it's forbidden. Our Mishnah argues on Rav. It looks like he goes against his Rav, because we said Is higher than 10 Tvachim, goes to the balcony, less than that goes to the courtyard. Now, who uses this pillar? How do they use the pillar? These people throw up, these people throw down, right? The people downstairs in the courtyard have to throw up, and the people in the balcony have to throw down, right? And then we see that this belongs to the balcony, and that's like Shmuel, that shibush used through lowering is a proper use, and using through sprinkling, through throwing, is not a proper use. Therefore, we give it to the top people, not like Rav, that they're both a sorsel. We say, no, we give it to upstairs. Masnisa, we're talking about Mishnah where this mound is b'toch shloisha tvachim le'elyona. It's within 3 tvachim of the top one, she'ina malam asar tvachim l'tachtoina, and it's more than 10 tvachim from the courtyard. So we're talking about a case, it's less than 3 tvachim to the balcony. So it's very easy to use it there, right? But the courtyard is 10 tvachim high. That's not so easy. So he goes to the balcony. Where the distance between the there's a middle area between 2 outer areas, one's higher 10, whatever, it's the equal distance, or lower 10. Basically, this one is Zrika, this one is Shilshul. Rav holds they're both also. Now, Hayasham Choba, this is about middle rishus between 2 courtyards. If there was a ruin which they didn't make an Eruv together, Rav Yochanan, he says if the ruin belongs to one of the courtyards, they can carry in it, and the other courtyard can't carry in it, because you follow the financial owner here, and the people in the other second courtyard can't forbid it. It's all very well where you use the ruin through the door, and we give the fair enough. But what about if you use it in an unusual way, and the balachatza, the second one, is using it through, so one's using it through a window, one's using it through the door, which is easier to use it through the door, do we still give it to the owner? Even so, we give it to the owner. If you had 3 ruins next to each other between 2 courtyards where they didn't make an Eruv, so, right, you've got 2 courtyard that end, 3 ruins in the middle, right? This one has got his door to get into his ruin on that side. This one gets into his ruin from that side. But inside, what about the middle ruin? Asura is also to both of them. When is that? When the middle one belongs to both. If an outsider owned the middle property, and he's not living there, and he's not using it, one uses one of them, and the other one uses 2. 1 second. How are we using this? How are we reading this now? Uveshenis. Now, what does it mean, uveshenis? Sounds like one uses 1, one uses 2, doesn't it? Now, in the notes here, they've written, how are you reading this? Ivor, what do they say in English? Ivor? This one uses 1, this one uses the other. Yeah. Carry on. How do they translate it? Go on. Or pass me your Gemara if you want. This one uses 1.
You want when the middle room belongs to 2 people.
So so can they both use the middle one? So if you look at the wording,
the middle room belongs to a person from the marketplace.
Yeah.
That's an outsider.
Yeah. So then what happens? What's the din?
Doesn't live in the Hotzeh. This Hotzeh may use the one ruin closest to it.
We're a bit further past
the Hotzeh may use the ruin closest to it.
Yeah.
And the second one away from it.
So are we using? It sounds like. Yeah. One can use the first one, and one can use 2. Yeah. In the wording they've written here, each one can use both. The one next to it and the middle one. Because they're both mutter and they don't forbid on the other because it's not theirs. Let me see the notes here. This pirush is a bit difficult to understand. The Lashon, this one uses 1 and this uses 1 and 2, implies that one can use that extra one. Yeah. And the second one can use both. Rishonim had a girsa, this one uses 1 and this uses 2. Says the Rashba, brought to Miri, is talking about where someone always uses the ruin, the middle one, and the second one doesn't use it. So we give the ruin to the one who always uses it. As opposed to when the ruin belongs to both, then it's the monetary owner that depends. and the one who's not used to using it forbids the middle one. Some have a guess that if it was middle for one, if the chorva belongs to one of them, we give it to them. They both use it equally. You follow the monetary owner. Okay, so I think on the one hand, he's not happy with the girsa, and yet they've written it to say that each one can use it. So the wording implies that one has one and one has two, but the actual pshat they've given is that each one can use the room. All right, okay. Now, we spoke about a pit. Chulias haba, when does it join with the space in the middle? We've touched upon Chulias haba many times in Shas. Now, I always found it hard. A pit is in the ground. What's the wall of the pit? When the pit is in the ground, what is the wall? You'd think the wall is the whole earth, the whole planet Earth. But obviously there is some sort of set-aside area that's considered the wall.
Within the side of it.
Just you've got a hole in the ground, there must be some wall around it that's a wall. We're not talking about the whole earth. We're talking about a designated wall around it.
So
you may have built a special wall.
Of that, even if it's just compacted earth.
Yeah, we don't know what it's made of. We're not
whatever.
looking at the whole earth. We're looking at a designated area around it. So Ha'omed, you've got the middle hole. But Ha'omed is the wall around it. The Ha'chala, which is the space in the middle. The Starfin Labo, they join up for four tefachim by 4 tefachim, which is the width of Rishus HaYachid. And if you've got together this share, it's Rishus HaYachid, even though each one, it doesn't have that share. Now, providing the width of this wall around it is greater than the width of the pit in the middle. Rav Zira asks, now, do we need each one of the sides in its own right to be more than the hole in the middle? Or can we join the two sides to be more than the middle? Rabbi Yosef Shita Rav Zira is Pashat Rav Zira She'ein Oimed B'Sada Echad Mitzaref. That if you've only got a wall on one side, that doesn't join with the space to make up 4 tefachim. The chulia, the side, doesn't join with the space unless there's another side on the other side. And also Pshitale, one thing's clear to Rav Zira, She'ein Oimed B'Sada Echad Rabba, that the wall on one side is more than the space, but if both sides are not more than the space, if each side on its own is not more than the space, then the wall doesn't help, even though both of them together are more than the space. So it seems each one has to be more than the space. We didn't need to ask the question, only even if the second wall of the chulia, does that also have to be in its own more than the space? Or maybe it's enough. If one side is more than the space, maybe that's enough. Do you need both sides to be more than the space? Maybe the second side doesn't have to be. Very good question. I'm afraid we don't have an answer for that. Now, we said, when is it that people upstairs have rights to this pillar or whatever, when it's close to them? If it's far away, then it belongs to the courtyard. What's close to them? 4 tefachim. So if, let's say, the wall of the pit or the mound is more far away from the balcony, 4 tefachim or more, belongs to the courtyard, even if it's 10 tefachim high. Rabbi Yirmiyah B'Shem Rav Shmuel Bar Rebbe Yitzchak Mishloisha Bad Aboim Mazdisa. Our Mishnah is talking about a chulia, which is between 3 and 4 tefachim, but not less than 3 and not more than 4. So it's a distance between 3 and 4. Because if it's more pachos mishloisha, if it's less than 3, I feel pachos masor, even if it's less than 10 tefachim, mutter, you can carry from it to the balcony, because less than 3 is lavud. It's like part of the balcony itself. And if it's more distant from the balcony above, if it's more than 4, then I feel a yosem asar, even more than 10, also is forbidden to the balcony. Ela, between 3 and 4, that is the question. Now, what about if a side of a pit, or a rock, or whatever, is 10 tefachim, it belongs to the balcony? But when is this? B'shein shom tikra. Now, that's all very well. You have, let's say, a pit or whatever, or a rock, but there's no roof. So it's very easy to use it from the balcony. Yesham tikra, if you have a roof between that and the balcony, so it's very difficult for the balcony to use it. Even no matter how big it is, it belongs to the people downstairs. But Rebbe said, when do we say when there's a roof it belongs to downstairs, we change from nekev? If there's no hole in the roof, if there's a hole in the roof, typical Yerushalmi answer this. If they make a hole in the roof, then they can use it through the hole in the roof. Halacha Dalet. We're continuing in the Halacha Zayruv Chatzeros. Eruv Chaseros has to be left in one of the houses in the courtyard, and not in the courtyard itself. And what is considered a house? What about someone who lives in a house? Is he one of the people of the courtyard? Would he forbid tiltal on everyone else if he didn't join in? Someone who lives in a courtyard, or in a place where there's no house, would not forbid the people of the houses. So what about here? What's considered a house as far as this? I know since Eruvai, so one who lives is Eruv Chaseros Bebeis Shar, a small house which is like a courtyard. It's an opening gate, and people go in and out through it. Or Bar Sadra, which is like a sort of a porch where there's a roof on it without walls. Or Mir Peses, which is like this balcony that you go through into the houses upstairs. Eina Eruv, that's not an Eruv. It's not called a house. It's like living your courtyard, your Eruv in a courtyard. It's not an Eruv. But Hadasham, one who lives in the gatehouse, Eina Yisrael would not forbid carrying on someone living in the house in the courtyard. He doesn't need to join in, because living in these places is not considered living. But one who leaves his Eruv Beis HaTeben in the straw storehouse, Beis HaBoko, the stables, Beis HaEtzim in the wood storehouse, or Beis HaItzaros, or the wine cellar, or all these things, Hareza Eruv, that is an Eruv, that's considered a living use. That's considered a house. But Hadasham, one who lives in any of these places, then let's say you've got your straw to be there, as if you're living there. Love, you would forbid anyone. Rabbi Yehuda said, if in the place where you've borrowed it, but there is tfisas yad shel balabayis, the balabayis still can leave his stuff there. He doesn't forbid. So that's the thing. Let's say, imagine you have a flat next to your house. You have people who come and stay in your flat, right? Now, if they're there less than 30 days, I think the din is, look, it's your house, and there's no problem of carrying there. Also, if you leave your own stuff there, let's say in the loft of that little flat, you leave your own stuff, then you've got tfisas yad. So you've got still an ownership there, and therefore there's no problem of reshus, of carrying between the flat and the house. Okay? So, Eino Eisor Alav. Rabbi Bar Yehuda, and by the way, the Hereford Suite is a beautiful flat in Manchester if you ever want to stay there. Rabbi Bar Yehuda B'Shem Rav. Adar Tama, now that which we say, go to J Stain, you'll see it there. Adar this which you say, that it's not an Eruv, that's Bebeis Shar Shel Yachid. If you're living in a private gatehouse, that's nothing. Bebeis Shar Shel Rabbim, a public gatehouse, like Heaton Park, we've got a nice little gatehouse there. I raise the Eruv, that's considered an Eruv. Adar Sham Eisor Alav. One who lives there would forbid. To be Rav Yana, they said, even if the Balabais left a peg to hang his shoe, which is a little use, that's considered he's still holding on to it, and the resident would not forbid Rishus. Rabbi Yabachinam, he said, even if the Balabais left for himself a piece of metal, which are not kalim, and afilu tabla, or some sort of board of wood, it's not kali, which is muksan Shabbos, that's considered you've still got a hand there. Rav said, no, it's got to be something which is not muksa. Someone had a chicken coop within the house of his friend. He would go into his house friend without permission in order to deal with the chickens. Rav story came before Rav. He was asked, that's chus. Is that considered tfisas yad? Because you deal with the chickens. It's got to be something which is not muksa. He said, he has to give them water. It's like something not muksa. He has to go in for that. It's not like leaving a muksa thing which you can't touch. Rabbi Yaakov B'Shem Shmuel, Talmidu Rabbi Yochanan and Tzalkin LaAchbere. They went to Achbere, which is a place. V'samchin al Hadad Rabbi Yanai, and they relied on the story of the Talmid of Rabbi Yanai, that even if you leave a peg to hang something your shoe on, that's twisted yad. They had a similar story, and they relied on this psak, and that it wouldn't be forbidden. Chizkiah didn't say this. And he said, this is the story. Rav Chia, Rav Asi, Rav Ami, they went to Achbere. The Shamun, with base Rabbi Yanai, the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda. They learned the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda and Mishnah, who said, if you've got tfisas yad, then it doesn't forbid. They didn't pass in halacha of tfisas yad of balabais. If it's enough, a peg or whatever is not enough, maybe you need to have something more significant. Okay? And there was a story, someone once, of Shaila of Kerstir, his yacht says coming soon. So they say a joke that someone made a background on his computer of tonight. They made a background of Shai Kerstir, but then his mouse stopped working. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. So we're talking here about one of the courtyard who is not at home for Shabbos, but he's not at home. Does he forbid on everyone else? He's gone to go to another town for Shabbos. Whether he's a Jew or not. He forbids everyone in that courtyard if you didn't join in. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, ain't Isa. You don't forbid on them because he's not there. Rabbi Yosef, he says, Nachri, a guy, Isa would forbid, he might come home middle of Shabbos. But Yisrael, the Jew, is not going to come in Isa. The Jew's not going to come. He says, you left your house, you went to your daughter living in the same town. Oh, yeah, there's trouble there. Ain't Isa. 1 second. No, sorry. So you don't forbid. He's definitely not going to come home. Yeah, he's gone to his daughter. Everything's going to be fine. He's not going to come back on Shabbos. Now, according to Meir, you don't live there. You still forbid if you're not there for Shabbos. This Mishnah is the source of that which we said above. He said even a locked house can forbid, even if there's no one there. Now Rabbi Yossi, Yisrael goes outside town, doesn't forbid. He's not going to come back. But what about the din? He can come back through an Eruv to Chumin. Do we say since he's allowed to come, he would forbid, like a guy who can forbid, or maybe no, he's not going to come back. And also, what about if he can come if he did come back, Be'isur, if he's come back now, does he forbid? Well, since when Shabbos came in, he wasn't there, he doesn't forbid. Very good question. We have no idea. Rab Paskin Halacha Ma'ukum Shem Rab Halacha Kuf Shimon. Shimon, even the Jew who leaves his house, he goes to stay with his daughter, he does not forbid. Halacha Vav. Now we're talking about how you can get water out of a well of water between two courtyards where they didn't make an Eruv. So you have a pit between two courtyards. So half in one side, half in the other. You cannot take water out of it on Shabbos. They have to make a mechitza on top. And it goes down, and sort of dividing their area. And the water, the poh, gets divided into two courtyards, and each one can take from his side. And that mechitza helps. Whether they made it within the water in the well, or they made it sort of at the edge of the well, even though it's above the water, like the water doesn't actually fill up the whole well, and we sort of virtually imagine the mechitza going all the way down. Mechitza doesn't help unless you make it actually in the water. But it's still they'll say no, it helps if you do it above. It shouldn't be any bigger than the wall between them. You shouldn't have to make a mechitza in the pit to allow you to take the water. It's enough with the wall that separates between two courtyards and goes above the opening of the well, and that wall is enough to divide the boer into the two courtyards, even though it doesn't go within the depth of the well at all. So it can be completely above the surface of the actual well mount. Yeah, it doesn't have to actually go into the well at all. Now, bring a machlokes Amoraim, what Beis Hillel say? That mechitza helps to draw water from the well, even if you do it above. So how far above? This is it. Are we talking above the surface of the water? Or are we talking above the wall of the well? Do you understand? What is considered above? The Chacham argue. What does Beis Hillel mean? The wall, the mechitza should go touching the water. The shalshal deli, until you can get your pail of water. They don't allow it, it's above. Some of it has to be submerged in the water. Then the Gemara says, but why does it help mechitza? Maybe the deli will go underneath, you'll get water from the other side. So they said, it doesn't go more than 4 tvachim in the depth of the water. It's enough that mechitza goes a bit in the water, depth of 4 tvachim, and that's good enough. Rabbi says, they were more lenient with a well of water, a mechitza tuluya, right? Mechitza above, which we virtually make it go down to separate between the two rishos, even though there's no mechitza touching the water at all, right? Not like Rishon ben Levi, who says it's got to be 4 tefachim actually in the water. So you see that it's like going down until below, then you divide the pit into two. Even though a churva between two courtyards, mechitza tuluya doesn't help, but with a well of water they were lenient. Hayasham tikra. Now we're talking about dividing a pit without mechitza. Hayasham tikra. Imagine one of the courtyards had a roof which reaches to the middle of the bow. Roya is Ki'ilu Yeredus. We imagine the end of the roof going straight down. Yeah, Pitikra Yered V'Soisen. And it divides the pit into two. And therefore each courtyard can take from its share, even though they never made a mechitza. Hayasham Amaltara, if they had a kaira, where the width of it was at least 4 tochim. Again, we can look at the edge of the kaira, it's the same as if it's going down and closing off the area. Even though it's not wide like a proper tikra, but as long as this is kaira, that's good enough. Mechalef. Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Now we said, Rabbi Yehuda said, a mechitza shouldn't be bigger than the kaisel between. So it sounds like even according to Rabbi Yehuda, if you don't have a wall crossing the bow, they can't take water out of it. So the Gemara says, "Mechalef shita Rabbi Yehuda." We have a contradiction of Rabbi Yehuda. Tamad Amar. Now in Beitza, we've learnt with Eruv Tachumin. Imagine someone's kalim. You can't take them from the tchum of another owner, 2,000 amas, right? They have to go where the owner is. And same thing with food. A woman who borrows spices and water and salt to put in her dough, and the woman she borrows from has a different tchum. Yes, remember this? They cannot take the dough from the tchum of the two women. So if you've used ingredients from one woman, your loaf has to follow the tchum of that woman, and maybe you as well. But you can't. It has to stay within the tchum of the original donors who gave for this food, right? So therefore, the one who gave the flour, the one who gave the water, and therefore we learn Rabbi Yehuda paid b'mayim. He said, look, if you borrowed water, that's not considered significant enough to decide the tchum has to follow the owner of the water. She'ein behen mamish is not considered important enough. There's no din shvisa for the owners on the water. But here in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says the water in the pit is like the din of kelim of the courtyard. You cannot take it to another courtyard. But according to his shitta, just like water is nothing as far as tchumin, so as far as the Isuk Tilsel courtyard to courtyard, we should have said water is nothing. There's no din of shvisa on a courtyard when it was there when Shabbos came in. You should be allowed to move it to another courtyard. Very good question. We have no answer. Now the words of Rav Huna and the words of Rav Hillel, Beis Hillel, the mechitza above. Rav Huna, v'ushte mechitza b'letis to Kol Haloshon. Right. It's not enough for the mechitza to go above the well completely, but mechitza is made for the sake of the pit. It's got to be within the space of the pit. Yeah, it's got to go down within the walls, even if it's not touching the water, but within this halal. It doesn't have to go mamish down. You can make it even above. What are we saying here? It has to be within the halal of the bow, but within the halal, you don't need it to go below. Actually, so you can also make it above. What does he say here? This like Rav Huna and Bavli. Within the space of the pit, close to the water, but it can be at the top part of the pit, not close to the water. You might have thought you have to make a special mechitza for the pit. You need it completely on top, even though it's not made to distinguish between the water on the two sides. He says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Beis Hillel, you need it to be a mechitza made as a heker to divide the water from the two sides. But it can be above the pit. So he's telling you no. It's got to be baletis. It's got to be sticking into the halal of this pit. Okay. We will stop here, Rabbi Say. Okay.